The day had been a dreary, sodden mess, rain hammering the windows in fits and starts, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and lingers. I'd holed up inside, surrendering to the monotony of video games, the flickering screen my only companion as the world outside drowned itself. By 5 p.m., the storm had clawed its way to a new ferocity, lightning jagged across the horizon like a predator's grin, thunder growling low and guttural. I cooked a meager dinner, the sizzle of the pan barely audible over the wind's relentless howl, and decided the mood was ripe for a horror movie. Shutting off the lights, I sank into the couch, the storm's chaos bleeding into the screams and shadows on screen. For 2 hours, I let it consume me, the tempest outside swelling into a monstrous symphony, rain lashing the house like it wanted in, lightning strobing through the blinds. By 10 p.m., exhaustion hadn't claimed me yet, though the storm had grown teeth, thunder rattling the walls, strikes so close they lit the room in blinding flashes. I stood to stretch, my water glass empty, and shuffled toward the kitchen. That's when it happened. As I turned toward the hallway, something slithered across the wall, a shadow, quick and sharp, gone in the blink of an eye. My breath caught, a cold prickle racing up my spine. It was too fast to grasp, too fleeting to trust, just a smear of darkness that might have been nothing. I froze, staring into the empty corridor, the silence between thunderclaps deafening. Tentative, I crept forward, peering around corners, half expecting some nightmare shape to lunge. Nothing. Just the hollow stretch of hallway, dim and lifeless. A trick of the light, I told myself, a lightning flicker through the window. The horror movie had me wound tight, seeing phantoms in the gloom. I shook it off, refilled my glass, and stepped to the window. Outside, the storm raged like a beast unleashed, trees thrashing, roads swallowed by torrents. Storms like this were rare here, a spectacle of nature's wrath our little town couldn't tame. Back on the couch, I flicked on YouTube, something mindless to dull the edge, to coax sleep closer. My eyes glazed over, the storm's roar a dull hum in my skull, until it happened again. A shadow moved behind the TV, swift and deliberate, like something had peeked from the living room's edge and darted back. My head snapped around, heart slamming against my ribs. The opening to the room gaped wide, black as a void. Nothing. I lurched up, adrenaline buzzing, and stalked toward it, scanning every shadow, every corner. Empty. The air felt wrong, thick, watchful. Was I losing it? Twice now, these fleeting glimpses, too real to dismiss, too vague to believe. The movie, the storm, it had to be my mind unraveling in the dark. But a splinter of doubt lodged deep, cold and sharp. 15 minutes later, I gave up on the couch, the unease gnawing too fiercely to ignore. Bed seemed safer, upstairs, away from the lurking corners. I killed the TV, the sudden silence suffocating, and climbed the stairs, each creak of the wood a whisper in the dark. Sleep wouldn't come easy, not after that, so I slipped into the shower, letting the hot water scour away the tension. 5 minutes in, steam curling around me, a thud ripped through the house, violent, bone-shaking, like something massive had slammed into the world below. The floor trembled beneath my feet. I killed the water, skin prickling, every nerve screaming. Dripping, shivering, I threw on clothes, the silence now a living thing, too still, too heavy. My ears rang with it, a high-pitched whine born of dread. Barefoot, I crept downstairs, the air growing colder with every step. The living room stretched out, shadowed and silent, but the kitchen, oh God, the kitchen. The back door hung limp, dangling from its top hinge like a broken neck, splinters of wood strewn across the floor like shattered bones. The other hinges? Torn clean out, screws wrenched from the frame. My pulse thundered as I bolted upstairs, slamming the bedroom door, locking myself in the bathroom, phone trembling in my hand as I dialed 911. I waited, breath shallow, every creak of the house a threat, someone still inside, watching, waiting. The cops came fast, searched every inch, and found nothing. No one. But the truth clawed at me, undeniable, that door hadn't been forced in. It had been ripped out, from inside. Someone had been here, in my house, all night. Those shadows I'd seen, they weren't tricks of light. They were him, slipping away each time I turned, biding his time. And when he left, he'd smashed that door in a fury I couldn't fathom. I haven't slept right since. The house feels alive now, walls whispering, shadows twitching. Whatever he wanted, whoever he was, he'd been close enough to touch me, to watch me breathe. And I'll never know why. Last winter cloaked the world in a relentless shroud of snow, thick, heavy flakes piling up day after day, locking me inside my small, one-story house. The town was buried, roads impassable, so I worked from home that week, tethered to a cramped desk in my bedroom. Hybrid, they called it, half office, half exile. The snow muffled everything, turning the days into a monotonous blur. That morning, I rose with the gray dawn, brewed coffee that steamed against the chill, and settled at my desk. From there, I barely moved, eyes locked on the screen until 8 p.m., the world beyond my window a swirling void of wind and white. When I finally stood, stiff and hollow, I shuffled through the house, made dinner, cleaned a little, then braved the cold to drag the trash bins to the curb. The wind bit at my face, snow crunching underfoot as I trudged back toward the front door. That's when I saw it, a strange ripple in the snow along the left side of my house. Everywhere else, it lay flat, pristine, but there, something had clawed through it. I edged closer, breath fogging in the frigid air, and froze. Footprints. A jagged line of them, pressed deep, snaking along the wall, too close, too deliberate. My gut twisted as I followed them, each step sinking my boots into the powder, until they stopped dead at the end of the house. Beneath my bedroom window, the snow churned, trampled, chaotic, like someone had lingered there, pacing, watching. My blinds were shut, thank God, but the cracks, those thin slivers of glass, could they see through? I pictured myself at my desk, oblivious, while eyes pressed against the dark. Shaking, I retreated inside, the warmth doing little to thaw the ice in my veins. Who'd be out in this? A blizzard howling, wind slicing through the night, why? I tried to shrug it off, told myself they were gone, lost to the storm. The night dragged on, restless, until I crawled into bed at 11. Before I closed my eyes, I checked the window, snow had swallowed the tracks, a fresh blanket smoothing over the evidence. No new prints. I triple-checked the latch, the click of the lock a fragile promise, and sank into uneasy sleep. Morning came sharp and cold. I jolted awake, some instinct pulling me to the window. Peering through the blinds, my blood turned to ice. Fresh prints, sharp, deliberate, carved through the snow again, pooling beneath my desk like a silent threat. I threw on my jacket, boots clumsy over trembling legs, and stumbled outside. The tracks mirrored the night before, straight down the side, ending in that same frenzied patch under my window. The rest of the yard stretched untouched, a blank white sea. No one. Nothing. Just the prints, staring up at me like a taunt. I called the non-emergency line, voice unsteady, knowing they couldn't do much but needing it on record. All day, I worked with one eye on the window, the snow slowly filling those hollow steps. By 8 p.m., darkness swallowed the world again, wind shrieking, cold seeping through the walls. I stood, pushed the blinds aside, and exhaled. Flat, flawless snow. Relief flooded me, warm and fleeting, until my gaze dropped. The latch. Unlocked. The metal glinted, loose, mocking me. I'd checked it, triple-checked it, and never touched it since. My hand shook as I reached down, the window sliding open with a whisper of betrayal. The night they'd come back, middle of the night, under cover of the storm, they'd undone it. Had they slipped inside? My breath hitched, shallow and ragged, as I backed into the hallway. Shadows stretched long and thin, every corner a hiding place. I crept to the front door, keys jangling, boots half on, and bolted to my car, snow too deep to escape, but safer than the house. I called the police, voice cracking, and waited in the locked car, eyes darting to every flicker in the dark. 10 agonizing minutes crawled by before headlights pierced the gloom. An officer arrived, strode inside, and vanished into the silence. Time stretched, thin and brittle. 5 minutes passed, too long. My pulse thundered, dread coiling tight. Then he emerged, dragging a man in handcuffs. Blood streaked them both, the officer's face gashed, the man's hands crimson, his eyes hollow and wild. 45, they said, a predator lurking in my hallway closet. He'd jumped the cop, fought like a cornered animal. They hauled him away, but his gaze lingered, a dead, creeping stare that burrowed into me. What had he wanted? How long had he crouched there, steps from my bed, watching through the cracks? The snow hid his tracks, but not his intent. I can still feel him, his shadow pressed against the walls, his breath in the air. That house isn't mine anymore. It's his. Spring break beckoned me to my parents' city, a small, sleepy place where I'd snagged a cheap Airbnb, a 2-day drive through winding roads to a house that promised rest. I pulled into the driveway just as the sun bled out, leaving the sky bruised and dim. Unloading my bags, I scanned the neighborhood, a silent sprawl of dark houses, not a soul stirring. No streetlights pierced the gloom, no cars hummed past. My rental glowed alone, a lone ember in a sea of shadow, though it wasn't even late. A faint unease prickled my skin, something off, something watchful, but I brushed it aside. Small towns have their quirks, I told myself, hauling my stuff inside. I unpacked, sank into the bedroom with snacks, and flicked on a movie, the hum of the TV a thin shield against the stillness. Hours slipped by, 9 or 10 p.m., maybe, when a sound sliced through the haze. A knock, sharp and insistent, rattled the front door. I paused the movie, ears straining. It came again, harder. My phone showed no missed calls, no word from the host. Pulse quickening, I crept to the door, the knocks growing urgent, relentless. Peering out, I saw him, a man in his 30s, black winter hat pulled low, a frayed red flannel hanging off his frame. I cracked the door, voice unsteady. "Hi." His eyes flicked to me, confused, then a weak, crooked smile twisted his lips before fading. He mumbled something, low, garbled, lost to the night, and turned, shuffling down the drive into the dark. I stood there, door locked tight, a chill sinking deep. Wrong house, maybe. An awkward mistake. I slunk back to the bedroom, the encounter gnawing at me, but the night stayed quiet. The next day, I visited my parents, returning to the rental by 6 p.m., bone-tired. I collapsed into bed, TV flickering, determined to unwind. But at 9 p.m., it came again, that same rhythmic pounding at the door. My stomach dropped. Phone still empty, no messages, no clues. I edged to the peephole this time, breath held. Him again. Same hat, same flannel, same hollow stare. I opened the door a sliver. What do you need? His reaction sharpened, surprise flashing, then draining to nothing. Is everything okay? Looking for someone? His face went slack, eyes like pits. No, he droned, monotone, and turned away, vanishing into the night. My skin crawled. This wasn't random. I left the bedroom door ajar, ears tuned to every creak, the house suddenly too big, too exposed. Something was wrong, something knew me here. Midnight crept closer. I doused the lights, crawled into bed, the dark pressing thick and heavy. Sleep took me, but not for long. My eyes snapped open to pitch blackness, the silence suffocating. A whisper, faint, outside, slithered through the stillness. Then a bang, a brutal knock that shook the walls. Another. Louder. The house trembled as I stumbled from bed, heart hammering. Down the hall, a shadow flitted past a window, quick, deliberate. I reached the door, peeked out, and saw him, red flannel, hat low, but he wasn't alone. Further back, in the murk, another figure crouched, half hidden, waiting. My blood turned to ice. I spun to grab my phone, but froze, eyes locked with a face at the back window. Pale, unblinking, staring through me. Panic erupted. I sprinted to the bedroom, slamming the door as footsteps erupted, dozens, a chorus of boots circling the house. Windows rattled, handles jiggled, they were everywhere, clawing to get in. I fumbled 911, voice shaking, as the walls groaned under their assault. They're breaking in, please, hurry. Minutes stretched, eternal, the sounds a cacophony of intent, until sirens wailed in the distance. Silence fell, instant and absolute. They melted into the night, gone before the lights flashed red and blue. Police swept the house, found nothing, no tracks, no trace. I called the host, expecting concern, but got irritation, a curt grunt, like I'd inconvenienced him. That stung deeper than it should have. Who were they? My guess, a prior guest, someone they hunted, tied to this place. Maybe they thought I was him, hiding. Or maybe they knew the host, tracked his name to this address. Or maybe they were just madmen, drawn to the dark. I'll never know. The house stood silent after that, but it wasn't empty. It watched me leave, those unseen eyes lingering in the walls. I haven't trusted a stranger's door since.